and losing, look, you got PFF grading you every week, like you were just referencing there before I came on. They're grading you. And now you go as a first-year quarterback, you barely know shit, and now everyone's telling you suck, and it takes a while to regain your confidence.
The whole operation just ain't clicking, and the whispers are turning into roars. Tom Brady came out swinging, flat out saying, he's not the guy. But is it really too soon to bury Shedeur Sanders? Brady didn't just go after players. He lit up the league and Cleveland's coaching staff. He said what everybody's been scared to admit: players get judged under a microscope while coaches walk free, hiding behind clipboards and fake promises.
The operations aren't there. He's not the guy. Is that too soon?
Yeah, but I would argue this. You're assuming that everybody knows how to develop a quarterback. You're assuming that you're going into a program. I mean, I'm telling you, this is not. There's a lot of people who have no idea what they're doing when they're tasked with coaching a quarterback or calling an offense. So are you saying, I mean, just like we'd rank quarterbacks 1 to 32, do you rank offensive coordinators 1 to 32? Do you rank quarterback coaches 1 to 32? Well, what if you have the 32nd ranked coordinator?
Brady broke it down clear. Quarterbacks like Shedeur get grilled every single day, but the coaches who shape them face zero scoreboard of their own. And worse, some of these so-called experts don't even have the skill set to coach a real quarterback, yet they keep cashing fat checks and sitting in power positions. That's not just hypocrisy. That's straight sabotage disguised as strategy. And Brady wasn't done. He clapped back at those coaches who had the nerve to say, Shedeur ain't on the level of Dylan or Flacco. He flipped the script with the real question. Have they ever given Shedeur the same first-team reps? Have they ever stood by him in practice, breaking down plays, actually teaching him the system? If not, how dare they say he's unqualified? That's not coaching, that's politics, plain and dirty. Brady made it crystal clear. If a quarterback is kept sidelined with no real support, then judged for failing, that's a sham trial. And Shedeur's case proves it. One coach swears he's evaluating and developing him, while another stays quiet, acting like his future isn't even worth a straight answer.
And that's a hard thing to evaluate. But I'd also say there's not many people who even know what to do. It's not like they're CEOs of businesses. A lot of times they're football coaches, with all due respect. They're not running large corporations.
Right.
As Bill Parcells said, they're PE coaches a lot of times that get elevated to, coaching positions.
That kind of inconsistency exposes the truth. They don't know how to handle him, and they don't want to risk him proving them wrong. Without consistent reps, how is any quarterback supposed to shine? It's like being told to run a race, but never given shoes. And here's the kicker. This ain't even new. Stephen A. Smith and Louis Riddick warned months ago that Shedeur was being set up to fail. They said it loud. This staff never had a plan to elevate him, only excuses to hold him back. Stephen A. let it rip when Shedeur finally got lined up for his first preseason start. He called it point blank. This wasn't an opportunity, it was a trap. Shedeur hadn't had a single first-team rep all offseason, not one chance to sync with the starters. Then suddenly, they tossed him into a starting role like a pawn being sacrificed on a chessboard. Stephen A. labeled it exactly what it was. A setup. A dirty move to make Shedeur look lost so they could wash their hands clean and say, see, he ain't ready. But the truth? He was framed for failure before he ever touched the field. And now the cracks in the coaching staff's agenda are exploding in public view. Messy, scandalous, and impossible to ignore.
To this question by saying Shedeur Sanders. And I'm going to tell you why. There's been 11 practices, if I remember correctly. He's been he's been playing against the third unit. He's fourth on the depth chart. And then suddenly you throw him into the start lineup, and he hasn't had any reps with the first team.
Louis Riddick jumped in with his take, and trust me, he didn't sugarcoat. He agreed Shedeur would eventually get his shot, but he exposed the real problem. The man barely got meaningful reps with the team. Riddick said it straight. If Shedeur wanted to shine in those rare moments, he'd have to play at an insane level just to be noticed. That's not development. That's a setup with impossible expectations. Think about it. How's Shedeur supposed to gel with the squad if he hasn't even been on the field enough to build rhythm? No timing with receivers, no real feel for the playbook in live action, and then boom, they throw him in and expect fireworks. The pressure was stacked sky high and the coaches knew it. And the wild part? Everyone could see the difference. Other players got space, support, and reps. Shedeur got excuses. Riddick didn't hold back. He said flat out that players drafted as low as Shedeur almost never sniffed the first team unless somebody powerful in the building fights for them. But Shedeur didn't have that. No advocate, no backing. Riddick even admitted it wasn't clear who pushed for his signing in the first place. That's insane. How can a franchise bring in a quarterback with no chain of accountability? And then came the bombshell. Jimmy Haslam himself admitted he had no clue about the move to sign Shedeur. He basically shrugged it off and said it was all on the coaches. That confession was a giant red flag. If the owner wasn't aware, then who's really running the show? And how can Shedeur thrive in a system that didn't even plan for him?
Preseason game. And here's the other thing, number two. You have to have people who advocate for you when you are a lower round draft pick. We don't know who's advocating for him within the organization because we don't know who stood up for him and who really wanted to draft him. So I can tell you this right now.
That lack of clarity exposed a front office and staff completely out of sync. And Shedeur's paying the price. Instead of developing him, it looked like they were plotting to quietly push him out. No reps, no structure, no support. Just louder whispers of doubt with every practice. Stephen A. tore into Haslam after that. He said this wasn't some innocent slip-up. It was calculated. According to him, Haslam and others didn't just neglect Shedeur, they made sure he'd never get a real chance. He spelled it out. You were not going to let it happen. And honestly, he might be right. Haslam's casual dismissal confirmed what fans already suspected. Powerful voices in the room never wanted Shedeur to succeed from the jump. By then, it was obvious. Shedeur Sanders wasn't just battling defenses, he was battling politics inside his own team. Reports leaked that while vets like Flacco and Dylan Gabriel got endless starter reps, Shedeur was stuck on the sidelines. And when he did get snaps, they were meaningless scraps that didn't give him a fair shot. That's not development, that's sabotage in disguise. Insiders whispered that the coaching staff was split down the middle. Some thought Shedeur could be molded into the franchise quarterback of the future, while others dismissed him as a PR stunt tied to his famous last name. That tug of war left Shedeur stranded, stuck in limbo, fighting battles that had nothing to do with his talent. And then came the dagger. Reports surfaced about the playbook. Some coaches hinted Shedeur wasn't picking it up fast enough, but sources close to him said he was never even given the full playbook in the first place. How can you judge his understanding when he didn't get the same material as his competition? That's like giving a student half the test, then failing him for the rest. Fans connected the dots, and social media went crazy with accusations of favoritism. Why did Flacco, a vet clearly past his prime, keep getting endless chances while Shedeur barely touched the field? Why did Gabriel, who only showed flashes, get pushed up so quick while Sanders was stalled? The optics were ugly, and the excuses were weak. What made it worse were the contradictions from leadership. One day, Stefanski told reporters Shedeur was part of the plan. The next, he dodged questions about his actual reps. That inconsistency didn't just frustrate the media. It made the whole organization look shady, like they were moving goalposts just to box Shedeur in. Stephen A. doubled down, flat out accusing the Browns of protecting their comfort zone instead of taking risks on real talent. He argued the staff clung to names like Flacco out of fear, scared to gamble on Sanders because giving him a real chance might expose how wrong they were all along. Louis Riddick backed him, warning that if the Browns didn't fix their quarterback situation soon, they'd ruin Shedeur before he had the chance to grow. And that's the nightmare. A young quarterback smothered not by his own mistakes, but by a toxic system more focused on politics than winning. At the core, this was never just about football. It was about power, politics, and control. Shedeur wasn't fighting for a roster spot. He was fighting against a machine built to box him out. Every missed rep, every dodge question, every shady comment showed the truth. This was bigger than X's and O's. It was about who really held the keys inside the building. The pattern was undeniable. Tom Brady sounded the alarm. Stephen A. called it a setup, and Louis Riddick warned the system was broken. 3 respected voices, all pointing to the same ugly truth. Shedeur wasn't being judged on talent, he was being suffocated by the system. And when the system is toxic, how can even the most gifted quarterback break through? Shedeur's path exposed how unprepared this franchise really was. First, no meaningful reps. Then, confusion over who vouched for him. And finally, Haslam admitting he had no hand in the move. That wasn't just sloppy. That was proof there was never a plan to build him up. Fans watched as the Browns fumbled away an opportunity, not on the field, but behind closed doors. Instead of grooming Shedeur into their future, it looked like they were quietly edging him out. No foundation, no support, no accountability, just a young quarterback caught in the crossfire of mismanagement and egos. Frustration kept boiling because the truth was obvious. How can a player hit his ceiling if he's starved of chances? How can coaches claim to evaluate him when they never gave him the same stage? It's like telling a boxer to win a fight but locking his gloves in the locker room. At the end of the day, the blame doesn't land on Shedeur's shoulders. No. It lands on a broken system that failed its own investment. A system where coaches dodge accountability, executives shrug responsibility, and players are left to sink or swim with no tools. And if that's the standard, how many other young talents already got lost in the shuffle? So now the real question isn't just about Shedeur Sanders. It's about the whole system around him. Can a player really succeed when the deck is stacked against him from the start? Is it fair to expect greatness when the environment is built for failure? Shouldn't coaches and execs be held just as accountable as the athletes they critique? Or is it all on the player to fight through sabotage and politics just to prove they belong?